Hey, I'm James Kotecki here at the C-Space studio, and it is CES 2026. And joining us is Mars's Chief Brand Officer, Rankin Carroll. Thanks so much for joining us here.
Great to meet you. Great to be here.
So anybody who loves candy loves Mars, but tell us about the overall scope of what Mars is up to. There's pet food, obviously, that I don't think some people are aware of, but that's a huge part of your business. Yeah. What's the scope of what you're doing, I think I should ask, at Mars as the Chief Brand Officer?
Well, as a company, we're across a few categories, as you mentioned. Pet care in totality, because it's food, but it's also services businesses, veterinary hospitals. We're in what we call the food business, the human food business, health and nutrition, brands like Ben's Original, other brands, and then obviously the joy that is my life, which is the snacking business, which until recently was really about, kind of some famous, M&Ms and Snickers and brands like that, and the Wrigley gum brands and a series of great brands there, Extra, you might be familiar with, and others, Hubba Bubba. And then very recently, as you might have read in the press, we acquired Kellanova. Wonderful business, brands like Pringles, Cheez-It, Pop-Tarts, and a few other amazing brands. So what we're really trying to do is expand our footprint in a complementary way across the snacking universe, which for us is lots of good reasons why, but we're not here to talk about that today. And then my role is really, taking care and responsible for our brands, and now the Kellanova brands included in my portfolio. How do we drive meaning, distinctiveness, value, and growth in those brands? And really the other big part of what I do and spend a lot of time is innovating through technology. And that's one of the reasons we're at CES, because we've been coming, as I mentioned, for a number of years. Myself coming, this is my 6th year in a row. And we're here to see what's out there, what can impact how we're building brands in many, many ways, in ways that surprise me every year. And meeting with big players in tech, but also startups. And that to me is one of the most rewarding and super interesting. I just give an example, Writer AI. We met them 2 years ago, and now we're into some wonderful work with them, scaling into our business, helping us AI enable our associates to really build content, both written and visual content, at their desktop. Mostly in our DCOM space, like for some of our sales associates in the DCOM space. So that was a really long answer, which I'm super conscious of, but hopefully what you were looking for.
Well, there's so much to talk about, right?
Yes.
Because you're doing so much. I want to talk about some more of these innovations that you're thinking about at Mars and that you're implementing, both now and maybe in the near future as we look to that future.
Sure. I think when we talk about innovation in my space, like there's obviously the product innovation piece. I think AI is coming to life through that. It's helping us, get consumer intimacy at levels we couldn't get to much faster, processing that data, aggregating that data, sorting through it to get to insights, and actually to prototype and try and test things much more quickly. So we're really doing a lot of work in that space. But the other innovation area for us is really in the content, the media areas, as you would not be surprised to hear. Partnering with our new agency partner at Publicis has been a real eye-opener for us in terms of how AI can enable us to get much more intelligent with our audiences. We're always working in that way with all of our partners over time, but they really have the elite data set that is Epsilon as an example, and how to unlock through their connected ID mechanism, really understanding from exposure through to conversion, what is the consumer journey? Yeah. And helping us, without the benefit, we don't have a lot of first-party data. We have a little bit in our M&Ms business, but really we don't. So we're quite reliant on second, third party. But this functionality and the technology behind it allows us to have so much more control, enabling us to be much more focused on the right, highest value audiences, maybe putting some audiences aside or even suppressing audiences so we minimize waste, as one example. So that for us is quite a lot of innovation. Then obviously in the production side. Mm-hmm. So the thing I was talking about earlier we have a partnership between Writer AI, a company called Grip, and with Google Cloud to unlock a thing we call the virtual studio. And that is this mechanism that really unlocks at the desk for a desktop for our associates to build content, get it out, and optimize in real time. So really exciting stuff going on in that space. And now we're just here to learn about what's possible, what's next level, and probably speak to a lot of non-like industries. So biotech. I love going to see what's going on in biotech and seeing what they're doing with chips and data, and how Jensen talks a lot about all the work they're doing in that space, and that's where the real innovation is. And I think we can learn a lot about innovation from companies like that.
I want to ask about generative AI in the making of video especially. I think there may be some people out there who have differing opinions on how good that is, if they like it when they see that as a commercial, if they don't. What's your philosophy around maybe, because you have some of these marquee brands, and when you put generative AI in front of consumers, what are you learning about from their reaction to that? And then how are you deploying, I guess, generative AI in those kind of high pressure contexts?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I'll start by saying we are ultra responsible. As a company that is private, where there are people named Mars, family members who are walking around the business, that you're very conscious of that responsibility, and you're a custodian of a brand. So there's just an aspect that's quite different. We think in generations, not quarters. So we can take our time, we can do the right thing, we can make maybe different choices than we might make if we weren't in that situation. So that's a contextual aspect for me that's quite different. That leads us to our 5 principles, really important. And one of the key, beyond quality, which is our first principle, but responsibility and mutuality. So those two things come together in the context of, we take the responsibility to protect our consumers, our brands. So when we're entering into worlds of new technology and AI, we take that very seriously. So I just highlight that as a context point. Now, that said, technology's been impacting production for 100 years. And if I think about CGI, what that suddenly created, the possibilities that created, that we would have, you think about the first time you saw Toy Story, and then that brought into production in general. Well, that was magic. At that time, that was an impossible thing, and you were seeing things that you'd never seen before. So I look at AI in production, I think it's not that different. It's just finding, because what we still believe fundamentally, and I think this is important, principally, we start with human capability, human talent, people, followed by creativity. Those things together are the beginning. Technology is an enabler.
Yes.
So we start with the consumer, the consumer and their pain points, their needs. Apply the capability of our talent, our agency talent, our creative talent, externally, internally, and then the AI is the multiplier. So I think we can sleep at night feeling good about, we don't imagine a world, and we actually don't want a world, where the goal is not to get rid of the human element. It's the primary element. And we are, creativity isn't coded. Creativity, and because AI can look back and replicate, I haven't yet seen it able to create new, fresh ideas that you've never seen before. Maybe I haven't seen enough, but so I think human creativity is critical.
You mentioned that you don't think in quarters, you think in generations, and there's 2 really important generations that a lot of brands are trying to target, Gen Alpha and Gen Z. How do you think about those generations? Do you see, what fundamental differences do you see there, and then what are you doing to address that?
Yeah, well listen, I just started the very basic one where, how they consume content, media, is changed utterly. And so we've shifted our media mix over the years quite dramatically and almost turned it upside down. And more, it's about being relevant. So, where do we need to be relevant? And therefore, what does that mean for our content? Reminding ourselves that our fundamental belief is we need to build brands with meaning, distinctiveness, that are salient. Well, the first 2 have been principles of our brand building that we're quite proud of for 100 years or more. And then the salience piece is about how you are relevant in the context where your consumers are. So how do we meet consumers where they are? How does technology enable us to do that more effectively, efficiently? And so it's had a huge impact on our media. And now it's starting to have an impact on how we think about building content. Open the door to influencers, creators, knowing that, and there's been a lot of talk about this, and I agree with it, which is fundamentally, brands are not as trusted as they used to be. And people are looking for their communities, be it personal, close communities, wide communities or influencers to give them advice. So how do we enable safely the handing over of our brands to these communities and open them up to co-creation? Because the other thing I'll talk about, so that's probably not very helpful, is we're trying to do it in a way, the other thing about these generations is they expect personalization.
Yeah.
And not only expect, they demand it. And they expect great brands to, within the bounds of privacy and what they want to share, to use that information to make the offering relevant, to make the content relevant, to make the experiences relevant and valuable. Do you merit their time and money? And if you're earning your right to that through the experience you're creating, I think that's part of the trick. And I think AI can play a huge role in unlocking that.
Well, thank you for bringing your insights to us today in the C Space studio. Rankin Carroll, Chief Brand Officer of Mars. Really appreciate you.
Amazing, thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us for today's interviews. That is it for day one with us here in the C Space studio, but there is a day two, so make sure you come back tomorrow and see everything we have in store for you. This is CES 2026. I am James Kotecki in the C Space studio. Thanks for joining. See you soon.